Okay, welcome back everybody. We're down in my wormery and it's feeding day. It's been about 10 days since the last time I fed my bins, and it seemed to be about time. I didn't even get a chance to check how the bins are doing lately, so I'm hoping there's going to be a need for this food. I do remember a time recently when I got myself all set up to feed, and then it just turned out that the food I had given them previously had hardly been depleted. So we're at my oldest bin now. And the feeding done most recently on my two oldest bins, this and the next oldest bin, I was tooling up to do a horizontal migration of both bins. So I set them both up with the horizontal feeding pattern like this. So I moved some of these little corn cobs. There's not much left of these. I've been trying to break them too as I encounter them. And each time I do, I could feel that they just fall apart much more easily than the previous time. But this corn's been taking quite some time. They're obviously getting into it at this point. They seem to like that little, there's like a little hollow that runs through the center of it. There's a fleshy material down in the middle there that they seem to like. But I also noticed very tiny worms liking to get in between the individual kernels. Let's get these guys back into the feeding zone. Wow, look at that. That's just right above the bedding, which I'm not going to tear up that bedding. I'd like for that to remain on the bottom. What's this? Okay, more bedding. I just went against what I said I would not do. So I'm going to lean towards some of these more succulent, sweet things that the worms really get attracted to. Because right now, the main reason for this is to try to lure them over to that side of the bin. So I want to definitely cherry pick the sort of remaining bits of cantaloupe. That'll do. Cover all this back up. I think that'll do for this bin. It's been 10 days now since this horizontal feeding has been set up. And I can't remember how old these bins are. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 150 days, I believe. So these are already in my sights for being harvested soon. But I think that'll do for now on this one. Let's get to the next one. Okay, fairly similar setup as you can see here. Avocado pit, not really going anywhere. Very tough something for them to try to get into. So this is a banana, was a whole banana. Barely recognizable, but the banana peels are still intact. You can still see some of the gushy material in the inside. And a few worms here and there. I would have thought that this would be a real popular spot. Or at least more popular than it is. Not to say that the worms don't like it, because there's worms in it. But just not being consumed as quickly as I thought. It almost smells like it's fermenting. It's not a bad smell. It's just the kind of smell that you smell when you're like I know I've brewed beer, and I've got friends who make home hooch, kind of moonshine stuff. It's the kind of smell that you get when something's fermenting. That's what I smell. So it's not an unpleasant smell. Okay, I'll try to create a little zone here that we can drop a little bit more food into. This little cantaloupe. You can tell from the appearance of the outer side. This stuff is going to get eaten up in no time, and then they're going to leave that outer skin for the end. And it'll do. Let's get this avocado pit back into the middle of where the action's happening. One thing we didn't do in the last bin is we didn't try to get a sense of how many worms still remain in the casting, so I'm going to poke around in here a little bit. What's that? I thought I saw something spherical. It was pretty large in size. I wondered if it was a cocoon. I don't see too many worms though. So I think it's happening as hoped. I mean, even as I go down, I only catch 1 or 2 worms here. There'll be no concentrations of food remaining down in here. I pulled out all the larger sized chunks in order to build this feeding zone 10 days ago. But I like what I see. I'll take one more peek over here. The corners always seem to be a popular spot. But here again, the only material throughout the bin is castings. And even down there, the moisture level on all the material seems right. Even if I pick some right out of the very bottom. Let's see, this is the very bottom. Here again, to me this just seems like random, not very dense concentrations of worms. Alright, I'm not going to dig any more of this up. I think we've done a pretty good sampling of the material throughout, and it looks happy and healthy and progressing in the way I had hoped. So I'll assume that the other bin is in a similar state and doing just as well. Should be okay to do the harvesting pretty soon too. Very soon. Okay. This is the only bin that I have in service right now that's a shallow, a shallow type of bin. And I don't even know if you can see below. The holes perforated on the bottom. This is the bin that had been used to do a vertical migration. And then the idea is that the worms, when they surface to feed, which is their instinct, they'll be attracted up to the essence of fresh food overhead, and then move out of the castings below and up into the new bin. So that was one way that this bin was populated. There was also harvesting done on a bin, and then all the worms that came out of that small bin were placed into this as well. So this sort of had a dual populating approach. Yeah, you could see the worms, you know, they're aiming straight in and out, so they're kind of crawling in between the kernels. Here too, you could see them coming in between. There's another avocado pit, just as almost as tough as the other one, but I could feel my thumb pressing into the side of this one, which probably doesn't say much, except that it's getting soft. I don't know. I don't know if the worms are even touching it. Okay, so here I'm almost at the fresh bedding that I was sprinkling in with the last feeding. So I don't want to dig down below that. I'll leave that at the bottom if there's any of it. Maybe put this pit back in and get some food in here. Alright, so I've got this ear of corn that I snapped into 3 chunks. So I'm going to start trying to get rid of that. Some carrots that they really love, as far as I could tell. That should be enough. There is, from what I could tell, there's also a fair amount of leftover corn on the cob from previous feedings too, so this should be plenty. Stop covering these bins with the cardboard. I've gone to covering them with only just a piece of sheet of paper with a piece of newspaper in the hopes that some of this moisture will evaporate off. So now the weather's dried out again. Hopefully that was the last heat wave, humidity wave, and hopefully this bin will return to a more normal dryness. Alrighty. Now we're at a bin that was initiated in July. So this is only about 2 months old at this point. You can tell right away, you don't see just like dark mat of castings. You can see that there's a fair amount of other material still mixed in. Food, mostly food, whatnot. Not sure what these are. I don't recognize them from the look of it. But I do remember there was a number of there were a number of cantaloupe seeds dropped into one of the bins, and this might be that one. Okay. I used to get a kick out of these little guys when I was a kid. These little isopods that curl up and roll away. Okay. Definitely, oh, that must be the banana. I had dropped a whole banana. I had a whole bunch of bad bananas. And I mean a whole bunch. So I froze them all, and each bin got a banana last week. The banana from this one, I think it's doing a little bit better than the banana we saw in the previous bin. Or at least it has a greater number of worms in it. Give it a hunk of corn. And a few pieces of melon. And what remains here? All kinds of goodies. It's going to be a little bit of a mound for now. Maybe in a couple weeks it'll just be a depression sucked in from all the food being eaten. Alright, cool. Like what I'm seeing? No noteworthy issues so far, knock on wood. Alrighty, and last but not least, my newest bin, which is dated August 28th, which was only about 10 days ago. So, 10 days? Maybe more than that. Okay. Now on the other bins you saw I had either feeding on the side or feeding in the middle. It's kind of my thing, I guess, now is feed in the middle, and when it's migration time, feed on the side. I don't know, whatever. But the only reason you're seeing lots of castings on the very tippy top here is because they kind of came along for the ride when I originally populated this bin. So I think that is the main explanation for it. Looks pretty good. Guess the space right below where the banana was is a popular spot, as I would expect it to be. Yeah. Huge abundance of worms in this bin. So here I'm definitely not all the way down to the bottom, because I've still got some stuff beneath my hands. But I mean, this is just a wad of worms. I could feel the whole thing's moving in my hands. It's incredible. It's so cool. All right. Yeah, just a lump of worms. It's almost like they're maybe it's not even the food that they're after. Maybe it's the company. They don't like being out here in the light like this. Try to move them off to the side so I can feed down the middle. Here too, same story. Just a huge mass of worms. What's this? Parts of leaves. All different sizes, large and small. I made sure to include grit the last couple times I fed, so I think the little baby worms hopefully have what they need to eat. Okay, well, I think this hole should suffice for the food that I have remaining. I've not seen any signs of worms trying to exit or leave because they're unhappy or uncomfortable. So I think we've got a space that the worms are enjoying and that they're content with. Here's the banana. Get that back into the middle as well. I seriously doubt that that's going to look anything like a banana the next time we peek in here. Alright, well that does it for today. The food supply that I bought downstairs was just right, the perfect amount. All my bins seem to be in great shape. And as far as migration is concerned and harvesting or whatever, that could be happening really soon on those first two bins that we looked at. Alright everyone, I think that's about it for today. Seems like we had just the right amount of food. No issues to deal with. Smooth sailing today. So, I appreciate everyone coming along and keeping me company. And have a great day. Thanks. Bye.